Hi folks, I am going to go over parts of a few things that I gave you to work on. First is going to be the bottom of page 21, Mexican hat dance. Just a couple details. In the first measure, there is a quarter rest. You lift your hand off for that. So we have a 2-beat note, then a 1, then a rest. Rest. I'm exaggerating lifting my hand, but you do need to come off. Now, the third measure, just because of the fingers being used, it uses the forefinger. Just because mostly of that, it can be a little bit harder, so you may want to break it down into steps. So if I would start in measure 3 and go 2 measures, I would get that. But what if that's hard for you? Take 1 measure, take measure 3, and if that's a little bit hard, I think it's when it changes direction. Do part. Do 3 beats. Then just take a break, a brief break. After a few times, you will find that easier. Then add back in that last note. I paused a little bit. You can do that while you practice so you can think. Take your time, and take your time when you go on. So that's how you can break that down into steps. A small amount, and of course we're already doing just the left hand. Now the right hand, the melody's the same. And I don't think this measure is quite as hard as the previous measure in the line above. And I believe that's just because of the patterns of fingers. So you want to keep on working on that. Now, if you look at page 23, lightly row, the book gives you a song with missing bar lines. So you can work a little bit with the counts in the bar lines here. All you need to do here, even though it's new, it's basic. Each measure has 4 beats. 1, 2, 3, 4, bar line. So we go to 1, 2, 3, 4. We need a bar line there. 1, 2, 3, 4, bar line, and the math works out. 1, 2, 3, 4. Same in the left hand. So they also ask you to write the rests in. The rest is a little rectangle. It hangs off the 4th line from the bottom. We count lines from the bottom. 1, 2, 3, 4. So after you draw your bar line in, you can put a little rest there. The main thing I'm concerned about for you is putting those bar lines so you get comfortable with what they look like and what they mean. So the left hand is very similar to the right hand. Bar line, bar line, little different. So the end is a little different from the first line. Okay, we've gone over some of this before. I'm just going to point out on page 24, intervals, the concept is really, really important. An interval on the piano or in music, it's the space or distance between 2 notes. We're focusing on seconds and thirds. Seconds, cat here, and thirds. I don't know, the cat must have been up here. All right, so they can be bigger, and we will have bigger ones, but page 24 starts you off with seconds and thirds. If that is not easy for you, then you want to keep working on this. Take it slow, do one measure at a time. So this is one measure. Now in this case, the measure after is the same as the first measure, but the concept is do a smaller amount. So the second line I had said before is the easiest on the page. The third line those two measures are the same, and then the next one is a variation. How is it varied? The half note G, let me hold this, is broken into two quarter notes. But really, it's the same structure. It's just a little bit, it's kind of embellished a little bit different by a half note being broken into two quarters. In the next line on that, you have that twice. Then walking down. Now, page 25 is an exercise, I call this thinking pages, where you actually use pencil and paper and study these rather than playing them on the piano. So they give you examples here. They show you about seconds and thirds. With thirds, there's one in between, and it explains that here. And this is an exercise I would recommend if you don't read music already, that you would work through this. So the harmonic intervals, the one thing that I like to point out, and I did point out in, I believe, the last video, was seconds are offset. One is towards the left, and that's usually the lower one, and one goes to the right. There just isn't enough room to stack them vertically like a third because they're just too close together. So in the left hand, you have the seconds and thirds too, and what happens is in the second measure of each hand, they take away the letter names. So you want to start getting familiar with what a C looks like, what a D looks like. Now, if you find that you just don't remember, you can pencil in some notes. That's okay. It takes a long time to really get these down automatically, but as you work with it, you'll get that. So in rockin' intervals, the rest again. And at the end of these, there is a repeat sign. The book is teaching you terminology, so yes, to do it the way the book writes it, you would repeat it. But when we're practicing, when we're breaking it down, we are already repeating to learn. So we wouldn't necessarily repeat the whole thing because we're probably working on sections to learn the harder parts. That's the trick. Work on the hard things first. The top of page 27, we have seconds and thirds, but they are not the same ones. We have the C and the D, which we had over here, and the C and the E. So that's the same, but look at the left hand. That is not the same as here because the second is different. It's a second, but it's a different second. So let's look at that. My hands are in place. And if I would follow that repeat sign, I would play that again. In the next little example, they have some boxes. For example, here they're asking you what note is a second above C. So you can look at the keyboard or you can mentally do this. What's the alphabet? A, B, C, D. C, D would be the second. C, D, E, that would be a second. If I have a third, I have to skip one, C, D, E. I have to skip one note. So you want to study that because when you read notes, when you notice if they're a step apart or a skip, that really helps you play. It helps you figure things out and read them. Now, the bottom of the page is very much like the top of the page, except the rhythm is different. And they have boxes above the notes. They are asking you here to put in the harmonic intervals. So you would, in the beginning of that first line, write in 2 for second, 3 for third. Now we get to page 28. We've got fourths and fifths. Visually, you can see they are larger. The distance between them. Now, I'm not talking about the distance going straight up because time moves left to right. From the first note to the second note, it moves up more. So we have fourths and fifths. They give you the letters of the first two and not in the second two. They give you the interval. The next song starts on F. They write that in for you, and then there's no clues. Goes up a step or a second, down a second, down a fourth. So we can see how the interval of a fourth is kind of suggested here. Now, the left hand has the exact same melody. Here's the fourth. And here, it walks up a fourth. I'll do that again. Now, folks, my fifth, the lyrics here, the words are kind of like a silly pun. It's making a pun with the interval of a fifth and with Beethoven's fifth. I'm sure you've all heard that. So unless you know that, it kind of seems dumb. It's kind of dumb anyway. So here we go. Whole song. Okay, so if we look at the pun, the ending, that's like a musical pun on. They changed the key to fit our C position, but we're not playing it that fast, so it may not come across. And when they say, this is my fifth, that's the interval of the fifth. The next page is a practice page. They explain what fourths look like, what fifths look like, the grayed out notes. You're skipping over those. So the dark to the dark one, that's a fourth, and here it's a fifth because we're skipping over more notes. Then they give the examples over here in the treble and the bass clef, and they have some exercises for you to study this. So we're getting into our first two-hand song in the book, Jingle Bells. We're going to do harmonic fourths and fifths first. And our next little song is Jingle Bells. And of course, it's not the right time of the year for this, but it's the first two-hand song in this book. I'm going to play it through a little on the fast side, and then I'm going to break it down. The hardest part is the ending. But we're going to look at what are some of the simpler things. First line, right hand. And you can start slow. And you would repeat that till it gets easier. You probably will find measure 3 is harder. So you might want to play that more. Adding in measure 4 when that gets easier. So that's how you would want to practice that. Now in line 2, starting in measure 4, people often get mixed up because there are 5 Fs. Then there are 4 E's. Now, another reason people sometimes get a little mixed up is because you probably know it. If you've heard this, you've heard you hear those faster notes in there. You know what? I didn't do that right. All right, now I'm getting mixed up. There's a couple ways of playing that. That's what it is. And I'm getting mixed up because I have taught this for 25 years, and this is usually what I play. But the word after ride, is often sung in fast. So that mixes people up, and you can see it just mixed me up. So my suggestion, I'm going to be ending this video with this song. I'm going to break down the hands separately, then I'm going to come back with a video on getting this together. So in the second line, you might want to go in 2 measure increments. When you get that down, go to the last 2 measures. And this is probably going to take a couple practice sessions if you are new to piano. Now, line 3 is like line 1. When we get to line 4, the first 2 measures are the same as 2. Measure 3 and 4 are different. And that's the part that usually is a little harder for people, especially when you put it together. Watch this skip. A lot of people, when they put it together, they don't get that skip. So really concentrate on that skip. Now, we're just going to look at the left hand first line. That's all it is. It's the interval of the 5th. It's the C and the G. And you're going to play and hold it 4 beats. In fact, this line is going to be the easiest line to get together. We're not going to focus on that right now. Some of you, though, probably can do that. Now, Lines 2 and 4 are the bigger challenges because the left hand changes every measure. Here's line 2, measure 1. Practice that. You might want to break it in half. A lot of people don't see the change in measure 1 and 2. The fingering is marked in on the first one, thumb and 4, but then your pinky plays that C. Now what you can do, if it helps you, you can write a 5 on that C to remind you. The last two measures are single notes. Line 4 starts the same. Here's where the pace is picked up. And you're going to want to slow that down to practice. This is measure 3. So your thumb's on G, forefinger on D, then just the G. And when we put that together, we're really going to... We're going to put a lot of effort into that. Most people, if you're a beginner, that'll take a lot of effort. Now, if you've played before, that's going to be easier for you. So that's where I'm starting. What I'm going to do then is I'm going to pick up with a video starting on page 30, and I'm going to add some pages after that.